There's another one you don't want to hear. Frankly, it's a wide.
1, 2, 3, set, go.
Hello and welcome to the Power Chord Hour podcast, episode 7. I am your host, Anthony Merchant, here with you, thanking you and welcoming you to the show. Very, very stoked. We have your February rundown tonight for you. Got music news, letting you know music that's come out this month, playing some new releases for you, all that good stuff. I'm very, very happy to be here with you, whether you're listening morning, noon, night, anytime. You know, it's a cool thing with a podcast. You can listen anytime you want, and that's always, you kind of forget that at times, how cool that is. You know, it's a modern convenience that you did not have not even that long ago, you know, so it's pretty neat. And it's crazy to think we're already doing the February rundown. That means that we're already doing our second rundown. We did one for January, and we're already 2 months into the Power Chord Hour podcast. That is blowing my mind. And I mean, on top of that, and probably even more than the 2 months, I would say, but as I'm recording this, actually, we have our 4th anniversary of the Power Chord Hour radio show. We broadcasted back in February 19th, 2016. That was our first broadcast on 107.9 WRFA, and that is insane. That was 4 years ago. I mean, it was almost 5 years ago now. It was almost half a decade, and I mean, that's just, it's insane to me. It doesn't feel, I guess it feels like it's been maybe a couple years, but not 4 years. It doesn't feel like it's been that long. And I'm very stoked and very happy that we've still been doing it. And I feel, I don't know, there is a threshold somewhere where I feel like I can listen back. Like you know, everyone has to kind of find their voice on things like this. And, you know, the radio show, you know, I feel like a lot of people are their own worst critic, and I definitely am, because, you know, if I go too far back in the radio show catalog, I can't listen to myself, you know. It is too hard to do. I go like, oh, that doesn't sound like me, and yes, it obviously does, but, you know, you don't want to admit to it, because, you know, you get better with time, and sometimes you look back at your old stuff, you know, as bands do with their music, as I'm sure authors do with their books, or, you know, painters do with their paintings, any of that stuff, whatever analogy you would like me to use here, you know, I feel like a lot of people are that way. But I am very happy at where the radio shows went. I'm very proud of it, and really, really stoked at a lot of the guests that I've had on over the years. It's insane to me. You know, I never really, I guess starting out, I was never thinking I was going to have guests on. And then I did like 1 or 2 interviews. Our very first was actually with Steve Neurotic back in November of 2016 from a great New Jersey pop punk band, Shower with Goats. And he does his own stuff with Steve and the Neurotics. Got to have him on again sometime. Next time he has something new coming out, we'll have him on. He's a really good dude, really interesting dude. I mean, he's ran labels over the years. I mean, he's toured with a bunch of crazy, great bands. And I mean, part of that New Jersey pop punk scene of the late 90s, early 2000s that I absolutely love. And, you know, I probably will get into someday on here. I've done it on the radio show and played big blocks of music from that era, you know, and really tried to shed some light on it. But I'm sure I'll do that on here at some point. But yeah, he was our very first guest. I mean, he was an awesome one to have. I really loved talking to him. But I mean, even since then, I mean, I thought about it today, and it's like, I mean, I've talked to people in the Sex Pistols and then the Ramones, and you know, I mean, people who have been in like Big Star, like things like that, where I go like, oh wow, you know, just for something that I really just started to do for fun. So really, really stoked, you know, where it's went. And I got to thank anyone who, I mean, if you're listening right now, obviously a huge thank you to you, and anyone who's ever listened to the radio show, listened to an episode of the podcast, listened to any of like our Spotify playlists, follow us on any of our social media, just any sliver of support for the show. I thank you all very, very much, because if no one's listening, it's just me in a room by myself talking into a mic. And, you know, I mean, it's fun. I don't know that I'd stop doing it. I would probably still do it because it's still pretty fun, I got to say. Because you do have this, like, self-realization, like, as I'm talking right in this moment, you know, no one else can hear this. You know, obviously you're hearing it now, but as I'm saying this, maybe that's too spacey. of an idea, but it's just weird because it's not lost on me that no one's listening as I'm recording this, is what I'm saying, but it's still really fun. So I don't know. I guess I would probably still do this if no one was listening at all, but I really like to know that people are listening. I've gotten emails from a few people about the episodes, and we get song requests and stuff on the radio show, which is really cool. If you ever listen to the radio show, you can send in song requests. Hit me up at that powerchordhour@gmail.com, and I'd love to know what you'd like to hear on the show. But it's cool because, I always love talking music, and I've had some people hit me up and email me about, just basically talking music. You should check out this band, you should check out this band, this band was really underrated. And I love that stuff because I like to shed light on that. Like, as much as I like to, expose people to new music, like I said, I'm going to be talking about all the great stuff that's come out in February, and we've had some pretty cool stuff come out. But I think it's also important to go back and hear stuff that you've never checked out. Like last week's episode talking about 24-hour revenge therapy and Clarity. Those are by far not obscure records at all. But it's like, if you have never heard those, my thing is like, the goal there is basically, if you've never heard them, I hope you heard them. After that, you went out and checked them out and hopefully liked what you heard. But, I think it's just as important to go and, discover an album that maybe you'd never heard that came out 26 years ago. That's just as important as hearing an album that comes out, today. Because it doesn't matter what time something comes out, I don't think that's so fair. Obviously a lot of great new music out, and you want to, expose people to great new music and great new artists and support new artists and new music coming out. But I think there's also stuff where it's like, what's to say that someone's favorite band isn't going to be Big Star? You know what I mean? Like, it's music that was maybe released back in, the 70s. There's songs that are 40 something years old now. But it's like, you could hear those in 2020, you could hear them in 2030, and, it still, I think, rings just as true as it did when they came out. A song off number one record deserves just as much recognition as whatever, really, really big rock band is out right now. So, I like to shed light on that stuff, so it's really always cool to talk to like-minded people. So, if you ever want to talk music, hit me up, powerchordhour@gmail.com. And we'll talk some music. I'm always glad to talk about that. And speaking of which, we're going to do that right now because, it's at the beginning of the year, so we are getting some new releases, but they're not coming out as fast as they probably will, like, next month in April. Like, I feel like March and April are kind of where things really start setting into motion. But, same with shows, because it's funny, before recording this, I was thinking about if there are any shows I'd been to lately, to talk about on here, and I have not seen one show yet. We're 2 months in, almost 3 months into the new year, and I have not seen a show, and that is not like me, but it's just the truth. I don't feel like bands tour as much, even that, you don't really see the winter tours. You see more of like spring and summer tours, but I don't feel like a lot of bands tour in like January and February, which is probably just because of the weather. I would assume it's the weather and all that. And I guess also, after the holidays and stuff, people aren't spending as much money. But, I'm just surprised. I'm surprising myself that I have not seen any shows this year. But I'm sure you will hear about it when I do. And I don't even know my next show, actually. There's not even one, like, coming up. There's tours this year I want to go see them, and obviously I'm going to go see like Bad Religion and Alkaline Trio. I just saw Less Than Jake and Lagwagon announced a tour. I will definitely be going to that. There's a few things like that I'm really excited for, but I don't know like my next show. So I don't know. I have to find something soon. But as far as new music goes, what is out, you definitely got to go check this out. The very first one, and this is my favorite thing that's been released this year so far. So, early on in the year, but my favorite album so far, it is Church Girls with the Haunt. This is their second album, and the first one that I've heard, and I absolutely love this from the song that I heard. I was absolutely hooked. They sound so good. There's a 90s throwback to them, but without being a band that just sounds like, like just a straight up 90s ripoff, because some bands I think have that 90s throwback sound and they just, it's just like, a gimmick almost. There's definitely some bands out there where it's their gimmick and the songs are basically just, copy and paste of like old 90s songs. But, with them, it's really not like that. With Church Girls, you can hear the influences. I think they wear them on their sleeve, but I mean, it's like fresh and original, so it doesn't sound stale, but still has that great 90s throwback. And another band, that they remind me of, I would say, is Title Fight. I get some heavy Title Fight vibes from them, which I love, because, I mean, that's a band I wish was still around putting out new music. I've always loved Title Fight, but I guess I didn't realize how much I loved them until recently. I was putting together the Spotify playlist that I've been doing for the show, kind of going through my favorite songs of the last decade and doing a playlist for each year. And, I started looking at it, I'm like, Shed, Floral Green, and Hyperview, like, I mean, that is just such a great, like, three, you know what I mean? Like, just three back-to-back records, like, they're just perfect. Like, those are perfect records. Like, those are so good. Like, it didn't even hit me until recently that Title Fight's probably one of my favorite bands of the last decade. And, I was even thinking of that. Like, some of my favorite bands, I would say, of the last decade: Title Fight, Menzingers, Mixtapes, Beach Slang, and probably Joyce Manor. And, I know a couple of them started in, like 08, 09. But they're definitely, all those bands, like, as far as what they released in the last decade, those are probably like my 5 favorite artists who, like, just everything they put out was always good, And speaking of which, with those, you should go check those out on the Power Chord Hour Spotify account. We are on there, and I put up playlists all the time. And I've been, like I said, I've been going through, and go check those out, kind of see some of my favorite songs the last decade. Maybe you've missed something, and also see, maybe if we got the same thing, go, oh, hey, like, that is a good, like, oh, yeah, like, I forgot about that Menzinger song, or I forgot about this, because, 2010 was a decade ago, so, like, on that playlist, I'm sure there's things on there that you might go, oh, my God, I forgot about that song. So go check that out, but first go check out Church Girls, The Haunt. That is seriously, it's my favorite album released so far this year. Another good one, go check out Green Day with Father of All Motherfuckers. It goes without saying, Green Day are a great band. There's nothing I can say here that hasn't been said. You know who they are. They're great. And, still one of the best live bands out there. I haven't seen them since 2013. I need to see them again soon. I don't know. I might go see them with Weezer and Fall Out Boy at some point, but I don't know. It also depends on tickets. Like, that's a tour that would have interested me more, maybe like, including like a decade ago, I'd have been all over it. And maybe even like 5 years ago, I would have been more into it. But it kind of, at this point, it's about ticket price, because I'm just not probably going to spend what those tickets are going for. And it's not to say they're not worth that. I'm sure they're worth that to a lot of people. But to me, it's like, yeah, I have a threshold there where I'm only going to pay so much for that. But I definitely got to see Green Day live again sometime. They were great last time I saw them. That's so long ago. I can't believe it was 7 years ago I saw them. But saw them in Rochester. Can't remember where. I think Blue Shield Arena. And I remember, who opened? I said I remember, and then I couldn't. And then all of a sudden I drew a blank. Oh, man. Oh, Best Coast. Best Coast opened. And I don't know. I'm not the world's biggest Best Coast fan. And it did not work in that arena. That very, like, the kind of like reverby kind of sound that they have on all their stuff. Like, it did not work in there. Like, the arena was too big for it, and it just kind of became muddy. It did not work well at all. Still one of my biggest regrets, another time I saw Green Day back in like 2005, I think it was, Jimmy Eat World opened the show, and I missed it. My ass missed Jimmy Eat World because I was buying a goddamn t-shirt. And I had not, see, now I regret it. Back then, I don't know, I was probably like 12 or so, and I knew the middle, and that was about it. I may have known, like, I think Pain was out because I think Futures just came out. So I knew, like, Pain because I watched Fuse a lot. So probably like Pain, maybe Sweetness. So maybe 3 Jimmy Eat World songs. I probably knew Pain, Sweetness in the middle. And, I liked him enough, but I was just kind of like, oh, whatever. I'll catch like a few of their songs. I was going to grab a t-shirt first. And apparently they played like 5 or 6 songs. It could not have been a long set, but by the time I got in there, they were already done, and it still kills me. For one, because I've still never seen Jimmy Eat World live. To this day, I've not seen them live, and that was about 15 years ago. I missed my first opportunity, and I've missed them a few times. I could actually probably do a podcast of times I was going to go see Jimmy Eat World and then something got screwed up. I probably really could do an entire podcast on that. I won't. That would be boring as hell. But, just letting you all know that I could do that podcast if I would like to. And for some reason, it just never works out. Like, more than any other band, like, I really can't think of another band where I've had that bad luck where I go, like, yeah, every time I go try to see them, something happens. But it has always happened. Thankfully, I've never, like, had a ticket, so I've never, like, been out money. But it's always, like, I'm on the way. I've hit snowstorms. I've just ran out of time. Like, just everything has happened. Car problems, like, just anytime I went to see them, like, I'm not kidding you. It's funny, and I didn't even bring it up on last week's episode. I was talking about Clarity so much that I guess I just never mentioned that. Like, I blew my only opportunity in 15 years to see them, like, in the same, you know what I mean? Like, I'm in the arena, they were there, and I just, which really, I don't even remember hearing them from like outside, like buying merch, like still in the arena, but outside the actual arena where they're playing. I don't even remember hearing them play, which, I don't know, something about that surprising. But yeah, that still bums me out all these years later. But I'm sure they're a great live band, and Green Day are definitely great. So go check out their new record. The Strokes do not have a new record out yet. That is coming out in, I believe, April, but they have released 2 singles, At the Door and Bad Decisions. And, At the Door, I did not like the first time I heard it. I will be honest. I was not a fan of it, and I just didn't think it worked for them. It's like, I want a Strokes song. I mean, I want to hear a band play the song. I don't want a bunch of synths and all that. And, it's very kind of a minimalist song. Now, after that, really, I'd say, like, just second listen even, I was into it. So, like, now I like it. But I would say Bad Decisions I like more. I'm more into that. It's kind of more of that rocker and kind of a more upbeat, up-tempo. And it sounds like a classic Strokes song, too. It also, it's funny to say that because it also obviously sounds like, if you've heard it, if you've not heard it, maybe it's not so it may come to more of a surprise. But if you've heard it, it's not surprising to say it sounds exactly like I'll Melt With You and Dancing With Myself, which I believe I saw both got writing credits. Billy Idol, and I don't remember the name of Modern English's frontman, but I believe both of them got writing credits for the song. And I don't know if it was a thing of they went in and purposely, I don't know if sample is a good word, but, kind of used those melodies, those vocal melodies and stuff, like purposely, going like, all right, this is supposed to sound like Dancing With Myself. Or it was a thing of, hey, this song's released and we're now realizing that, they sound similar to these, so we better give those guys writing credits, before a lawsuit happens. I don't know which one of those it was, but I'm pretty sure I saw that they both got writing credits, which they probably deserve because it definitely sounds like that. But it is a really good song. I like that one from the first listen, and I would still like that. I would still say I like that more than At the Door, but At the Door is actually not a bad song. I think my thing about it was more, too, that it sounded more, like it would have been more well-fitted for, like, a Julian, like, solo song, just because, it is very synth-heavy. There's not really a lot going on any of the other instruments, like, at all. I think there's a little guitar here and there, but, it is not a full band song, and, it's just not a like, Strokesy song at times. But it grew on me. After second or third listen, I was like, oh, okay, no, I actually really like this. But those are both. You should definitely go check those out. Another really good one from Stress Dolls, who we've played on the radio show quite a bit. Their Single Pills. They have a new one, and I've been playing this on the radio show as well, and I'm going to play it on the podcast for you tonight. But Nashville, their brand new single, go check that out on Stress Dolls Bandcamp page. Go give them a follow. They're on Facebook, Twitter. Don't believe they're on Instagram, but Facebook and Twitter, you go check them out. Another good one, a Syracuse band, Epic Tantrum. They just put out their new album, Abandoned, and they're a few albums in now, I know, but this is a pretty good band. They're on the heavier side, a little more hard rock, but definitely good, definitely well worth checking out if you like some heavier stuff. And Baby Screams has out a new one called Just Covers. It is a covers album. And what I really like about this is that they went and I should say not they, he did Baby Screams is a solo project, so just one guy, but he really covered some bands who don't get covered a lot and don't really get the credit they deserve. And he's another one. I'll play you something off that tonight. And I liked his song selection on this one. He picked some really good covers of bands that you just don't see get covered a lot and really don't get their due. He picked a lot of bands who are really, really good and people just don't talk about enough. So Baby Screams just covers. Go check that out on his Bandcamp page. And this one's been out for a few months, but I did want to talk about it again. And if you've been listening to the podcast, you've probably heard our interview with him. But Stephen Bradley's Summer Bliss and Autumn Tears, my 10th favorite record of 2020, and our first guest of 2019. It came out at the end of 2019. Favorite album, my 10th favorite album of 2019, but also our first guest of 2020. And that's a few podcasts back, episode 4. If you've not checked that out, go check it out. Really, really fun interview that I did with him. But I mean, if you like power pop, you cannot go wrong. Really, honestly, the best power pop record I've heard in years. So, kind of as the year is starting and new music is kind of slowly coming out, still worth going out and checking out a few things maybe you missed last year. So go check out Summer Bliss and Autumn Tears if you have not yet. But I got some music for you right now. I'm going to play you a whole block of new music of stuff that I just mentioned to you. So we're going to start it off right now with Baby Scream. And this is probably my favorite cover on it from probably my favorite band on the list of bands that he covers, but is a Fastball cover, a band who does not get enough credit. I mean, I know people know The Way and Out of My Head. I mean, those are obviously two pretty big songs. Even to this day get played on the radio quite a bit. I know when I was working at a Hot 40 station a few years ago, I mean, we played them constantly. I mean, even then a few years ago it was like a 20-year-old songs, and we're still playing them all the time. Every week you'd hear them a few times on the station. But outside those two songs, I don't feel like Fastball really gets much credit or people know much about them. They're such a solid power pop and garage band. They're a great trio. I mean, they've covered the Replacements. They're influenced by Big Star and stuff. There's kind of that college rock side of them. You don't really realize it, but I mean, really, really solid band. So I was stoked to see that Baby Scream covered them, and he did it justice. So right now on the Power Chord Hour podcast, check out Baby.
2 months since the hospital, but it still feels like day one. Whether up or down, I'm in my bed before the setting sun. And if it sounds like a repose or certain sense of hell, I assure you that I'm doing fine. Really, everything is swell. And I don't think twice about sunny days or the sticky southern heat of the pride I felt walking across that road in my bare feet. I admit there's times I can't be sure if that life was meant for me, or if I'll make it back to Nashville eventually. 2 months back into your arms, and I really can't complain. It's just now you got me thinking hard about whether I should stay. And I thought my minds were more secure and that I could depend on the words demanding permanence, on the ink left in the pen. 'Cause I don't think twice about sunny days or the sticky southern heat of the pride I felt walking across that road in my bare feet. I admit there's times I can't be sure if that life was meant for me, or if I'll make it back to Nashville eventually. sticky southern heat of the pride I felt walking across that road in my bare feet. I admit there's times I can't be sure that life was meant for me, or if I'll make it back to Nashville eventually, or if I'll make it back to Nashville eventually. Oh, I hope I make it back to Nashville.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Caudill from Gameface. You're listening to the Power Chord Hour.
Well, she's kinda like an artist, sitting on the floor. Never finishes, she abandons, never shows a soul. And she's kinda like a movie that everyone rushes to see, and no one understands it, sitting in their seats. She opens her mouth to speak it, what comes out to mystery. Thought about, not understood, she's aching to be. Well, she dances alone in nightclubs every other day of the week, and people look right through her. Baby doll, check your cheek. And she's kinda like a poet who finds it hard to speak, and poems come so slowly like the colors down a sheet. She opens her mouth to speak it, what comes out to mystery. Thought about, not understood, she's aching to be. And I've been aching for a while now, friend. I've been aching hard for years, and I've been waiting for someone to come and find me here. Well, she's kinda like an artist who uses paints no more. You never show me what you're doing, you never show a soul. When I saw one of your pictures, there was nothing that I could see. There's no one's on your canvas when I'm aching. Well, she closes her mouth to speak it, she closes her eyes to see. Thought about her only love, she's aching to be. Just like me.
Got some new music for you on the February rundown of the Power Chord Hour podcast. And that was Jeff Caudill with Aching to Be, a great Replacements cover that got recently released, even though he did record that way back in 2006 for an unreleased Replacements tribute album which is too bad. I would have loved to hear that. There's another really good one out there if you've never heard it, called Will Inherit the Earth, that I believe No Idea, it was either No Idea Records or Go Kart Records. One of them put it out. It's fairly old now. I mean, like at least 15 years old, but some really good bands on there doing some really good replacements covers. I mean, like Against Me, Off With Their Heads. I'm trying to think of some other ones. The Tim version is on there. I'm blanking on the rest. I mean, there's tons and tons of bands on it, probably like at least 15 or 16. But if you've never heard that, Will Inherit the Earth, great tribute album. And go check out that cover of Aching to Be on Jeff's Bandcamp page, jeffcaudill.bandcamp.com. And you should also go check out on our YouTube page if you've never heard it. We interviewed him a few years ago. He put out another good cover with a side project of his called Broken Trophy, and they did a cover of Jawbreakers Want. So just a nice little interview about the cover and the first time you're a Jawbreaker, and Gameface playing some shows with Jawbreaker. We talk all about Jawbreaker on that one. So go check that out, Jeff Caudill and me talking all about it. And that one's up on our YouTube page at Power Chord Radio on YouTube. So go check that one out if you've never checked it out. And before that was Stress Dolls with Nashville. Great single you can go check out on Stress Dolls Bandcamp page. Before that was Church Girls with Florida Off the Haunt, my favorite album of the year so far. And opening up that block of music was Baby Scream with Warm Fuzzy Feeling, a great cover from the band Fastball. And that is off their album Just Covers. Some new music for you that you should go check out, so go do it. You know, you always want new music in your life, including when it's good, and all of that stuff that I just played you with some good stuff. And the bands that I mentioned were all really solid stuff this month. So go do it. Go check them out after this. And right now, I have your music news for the month. We got a few stories here that I think might interest you. This one definitely interests me, and I'm very excited about it. Archers of Loaf have announced more summer tour dates in June and July, and the band's going to be hitting Brooklyn, Washington, D.C., Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, Chicago, and a whole lot more. And the band has been working on a new record, and they even recently released their first new single or first new song, not even single, their first new song in 20 years. That just makes me so excited. They're one of those bands, you know, there's so many bands that I've gotten into over the years that were long broken up by the time I heard them. And I heard Archers of the Loaf for the first time in 2014 after Andy Jackson of Hot Rod Circuit talked about them in a few different interviews. Like after I read like the third or fourth one where he was mentioning Archers of the Loaf, I'm like, okay, I should probably go check out that band. And I heard Web in Front, and I mean, talk about a band who the first time you hear them, there's some bands that I'm not a fan of the first time. Like the Strokes, when I was talking about them earlier, like I'm into the new songs, but I really only started liking them the last few years. Like I don't know why I was never really into them before, but it was just never a band that I liked. And probably around like, I don't know, I was like 24, 25. So I'm 27 now. It's a few years ago. I just started, I heard Is This It? I started listening to that, and I'm like, oh, okay, I really like this. And really started liking their first two. For a while, I only liked their first two records, and now I'm kind of into just about everything they've put out. A few of those, like the last EP they put out in like 2016, not too crazy on that, or Come Down Machine. A few good songs, but I don't like it as much. But like the first three records I really like. And then after that, there's a few good songs on basically everything they've put out after that. But as far as Archers of the Loaf go, they were not like that. Like the second I heard them, I loved them. I mean, Web in Front, you can't go wrong. I mean, probably their best song. And, to start off with that one, there is no better. But, at that time, I mean, they have played some reunion shows throughout the years. Like, they haven't been totally inactive for the last 20 years, but they haven't put out new music. They just sporadically play. So, I mean, I'm really excited to see them this year putting out new music and being very active. I mean, they have lots and lots of shows coming up. Looks like they're going to be promoting the record. You know, they've been putting a lot of stuff on social media, being more active on there. And I'm just so excited for that. I mean, if you're going to talk about bands reuniting this year, that one is definitely like my most anticipated. I love Archers of the Loaf so much. I mean, one of the greatest and most underrated like indie rock bands of the 90s, you know. I mean, obviously both are on Merge. They weren't on Merge in the 90s, but they are now, and they've been, I'm sure whatever new album they put out will be on Merge Records. And they've done all like the reissues on Merge and stuff. I forget who they were with in the 90s. But I always think of them and Superchunk as like just two bands of that era that just never got the, like, put out some of the greatest music and easily the greatest music of that era and of that genre, of their genres, and, just don't get the credit they deserve. It's like, it's insane that those bands aren't bigger. Like, everyone who likes indie rock or alternative, like, should know who Archers of Loaf and Superchunk are. Like, like Icky Metal should have sold millions of copies. Here's Where the Strings Come In should have sold millions of copies. It is sad that has not happened, but who knows? Maybe we'll change that. Maybe everyone will kind of come to their senses, and this next Archers of the Loaf record will go like diamond. It'll sell like 10 million copies. I'm hopeful of it. I mean, they know how to write a song, and I'm really excited to hear with whatever they come up with now. I'm really stoked. And Violent Soho is putting out, talk about some really good new music coming out this year, and some good stuff to look forward to. But Violent Soho have signed to California label Pure Noise Records for their fourth album. It is titled Everything Is A-OK, and is going to be released on the label on April 3rd. And you can check out the single and music video on the band's YouTube page for their new song, Lying on the Floor. I really like this. I've liked songs over the years from them, and never really checked them out until maybe like a year or so ago and got into them more. Like, I always liked a song or two, like anything I heard from them, but I never really like went any further. Like if I heard a song like Jesus Stole My Girlfriend, that got played on the radio, that got like some minor airplay and stuff. And like, I always liked that. I liked anything else I heard from them, but just for whatever reason, never really checked anything else out. And now I've kind of went back and listened to a lot of the stuff that I missed the first time. And I'm like, they're really, really good. So Violent Soho, if you've slept on them like me, they've been a band for a little while now. I mean, Jesus Stole My Girlfriend, I remember hearing that in like 2010. So I mean, they've definitely been a band for a little while now. But yeah, if you've not checked them out, if you've been sleeping on them, this is a great time to go check them out. And that's cool. They're on Pure Noise. I mean, Pure Noise is a great label. Who some of the best pop punk bands of the 2010s. I mean, they put out some of the best releases. I absolutely love it. Pure Noise is kind of, I think they branched out more now, and in a good way, but I think they've kind of branched out, and I mean, they still do predominantly like pop punk, but they kind of do stuff in that realm as well that's not just straight up pop punk bands. But they've always kind of been one where you talk about labels who have like kind of that seal of quality, like including in like 2012, like, around like that era. It's like, if it came out on Pure Noise, I knew it was going to be good. Like whatever they put out, you knew it was going to be good. Like Drive Through Records or Fat Records, I feel like Pure Noise has kind of done that to a certain extent. I mean, I don't think anyone's really touched what like Drive Through did, but if any label has, or they've at least emulated it, I would definitely say Pure Noise Records. So a very good fit for Violent Soho. This is going to be a really good record. That Lying on the Floor is an awesome song. Go check that video out on YouTube. And MXPX have released a cover of the Dwarves song Salt Lake City. That one comes off the Dwarves' 2004 album, The Dwarves Must Die. And the cover also features Jenny and Stacy D of the band Bad Cop, great Fat Records band. And the song was released as a digital single, so that is available now everywhere. And it is a really good single. They've been, MXPX has done a few covers now. They've been doing that a little more, and I like it actually. They probably one of the best ones. Sometime last year, a few months ago, so like late last year, they did a cover of the Atari San Dimas High School Football Rules, and just did a really awesome cover. And it was just really cool to hear that. And this Dwarves cover is really neat. They've been doing, I almost want to say they're kind of going more the singles route. I mean, they did put out their self-titled record back in 2018, but the last few years I feel like they just put out random songs here and there, which, I gladly welcome. They're always good, and the covers are definitely solid. So that's a little music news for you for your February. I mean, I can't believe we're already going into March here. The year is really moving along real fast. But I want to thank you for checking out tonight's episode of the Power Chord. It's weird saying, I get so used to saying night because doing the radio show, but you may be listening to this at 9 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know, maybe it's not night, but whenever you were listening to this, thank you so much for checking out the Power Chord Hour podcast, our February rundown episode. Talk a little bit about, the music coming out and some of the music that has come out. Played just some solid music tonight. Hopefully you go check out and support all of those bands. And if you want to stay connected with the show, we're all over social media. We're at Power Chord Radio on YouTube and Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Spotify. Like I said, I've been putting up those playlists all the time. We put episode playlists up from the radio show, and I've been putting up a special playlist of my favorite songs of the last decade. So go check out a decade of great songs over on our Spotify playlists. And hit me up, powerchordhour@gmail.com. Got some really cool Power Chord Hour pins made, and I would love to send you some. So hit me up, send me your address, and I'll send you some free swag, some free podcast swag. And just let me know, hit me up there and let me know who I should interview, who you'd like to have me try to reach out to and have as I'm getting tongue tied here, getting on here as a guest on the show. Would love to have anyone on who you think we should have on. I like to interact with anyone listening, so I like to know that. What would you like to hear on the show? Who would you like to hear on the show? Even more importantly, all of that. So let me know, powerchordhour@gmail.com, or you just want to drop a line and talk music, recommend some bands, any of that. Hit me up there. That is where you can always find me. But that is going to be the podcast, kind of keeping it short and sweet this week. But we'll be back with another one for you next week. Really have been loving doing this. Like I said, it's insane to think we're 7 episodes in. And, even crazier, we've been doing the radio show now for 4 years. Just sincerely, too. Thank you to anyone who's ever listened to that. And you can listen no matter where you're listening to this now. It doesn't matter. You could be in another country. If you're listening to this in Belgium, I guess. I don't know why I picked that. Anywhere but Belgium, if you live there, you too can listen to the Power Chord Hour radio show, because we're on 107.9 WRFA in Jamestown, New York, but you can stream the station on our website, WRFALP.com. So go check us out on there. You go on there, you can stream the station so you can hear our radio show and all the other great radio shows on WRFA. And WRFA also has a mobile app, not for Android, but for iPhone. So if you got an iPhone, go check out in the App Store. Just put in WRFA. You will find us, and that allows you to also stream the station. So Friday nights at 10 Eastern every week, we do new episodes of the Power Chord Hour on there. I spin you a bunch of punk and alternative. I talk to you about it. I'm there with you on your Friday night. So join me every week for that. Go check that out. And just thank you very much for checking out the podcast and everything that we do on here. So until next week's episode for the Power Chord Hour podcast, I'm Anthony Merchant, and thank you for listening.